Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. I hope you're having a great day. You're listening to the Service Business Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Tersh. Today's episode, we have Gregg Ward. He's the management consultant, trainer, and coach who is on a mission to help leaders lead their organizations, develop skills around respectful leadership, emotional intelligence, and executive presence. What we're going to talk about today is respectful leadership, but also managing bad behaviors within the workforce. We're all challenged. Gregg and I were talking just briefly before we started this about in the trades. I find it, but I am biased because I am in the trades. But in the trades, I find that sometimes it's the evil you know versus the one you don't, the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. You keep an employee because you know their quirks, you know that even though they have bad behavior. So on today's episode, Gregg is going to talk with us today and kind of help us figure out that situation and work through that. Welcome to the show, Gregg.
Thank you very much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are and what you do.
Sure. I actually grew up around the metro New York area, and my first big job was serving as a trainer for the New York City Police Department. Wow. And I'd come out of college, and they wanted to develop a program which was very interactive and teaching cops how to deal with people who were behaving badly in public. And I had some professional acting skills and improvisational skills. So I put together a team of professional actors to play people who were behaving inappropriately, were violent or suicidal or high on PCP and things like that. And then we would teach the cops how to manage those people. Wow. And instead of just hitting them over the head with a nightstick and taking them to the loony bin. So that really was the beginning of my work. And I've been doing that kind of work with organizations, teaching them how to manage bad behavior, how to have good leadership skills, how to develop your emotional intelligence for the last 25 years. And I love what I do, and I love getting my hands dirty working with leaders and trying to figure out their everyday problems with their people.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So maybe you know this statistic to be true or false. I think the last time I was up in New York, I was told that the New York PD is like the 7th largest military force, or size-wise. It's something massive. I didn't realize that it was as large as it is.
It is the largest quasi-military force in the United States, with Chicago and LA a distant second. Mm-hmm. But NYPD is the largest. I think, well, certainly when I was with them, there were 33,000 uniformed police officers on the street of New York City. I actually don't think there are that many these days, but it's big. Yeah. And in a quasi-military kind of organization like that, I mean, you got the whole world working for you. It's, you'll see the behaviors from A to Z. Mm-hmm. And if you're working as a cop, you're going to see behaviors from A to Z as well. And boy, it's tough. I do not envy cops. No. I have enormous respect for them. Absolutely. And I do. It's a thankless job usually. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, if your mission in life is to help people, being a cop is a great way to fulfill that mission.
Yeah, absolutely. We have lots of friends who are officers, and they so my kids play soccer, and a lot of the parents on the team are officers, and we talk about stuff. Man, I do not envy that at all.
Nope, not for me. It's just too stressful, and you can lose your life. I mean, absolutely, it's just you're putting your life on the line every day. Mm-hmm. Even if you're trying to help somebody who's not trying to hurt you. A car accident or something like that. How many times have we seen state troopers pull somebody over and then get hit by another car? Yep. I mean, it is a dangerous job. Absolutely. The times I went on ride-alongs with NYPD, my eyes were open really big. Yeah. But they let me, I did some training as an auxiliary cop. I know that was, junior cop kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I got to interact with the public and help people, like just basically give people directions or say, hey, you don't want to go down there. We need you to stay away from here. And people would thank me and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool. But no, the main part of the job is
Yeah,
not for me.
I could only imagine. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I visited New York, and being an officer in New York, I don't know. And not only the danger portion of it, the stress of the traffic. If I had to if I was running code and I had to get stuck in that traffic, if I wasn't bald, I would be bald for sure. I can't stand traffic.
Well, and remember, I was working for them back in the 1980s when the city was broke. They were crack wars. It was a bad, bad place to live. And there was corruption in the police department. I mean, you never knew. Just crazy, crazy time. Crazy time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Glad you survived. So
I did. Now I live in San Diego, and I'm loving it.
There you go. There you go. So managing bad behavior. That's what we're going to talk about today. So can you just define bad behavior? Like what do we, like, I get annoyed by things, but it might not necessarily be a bad behavior.
Right. Generally, it's behavior that a reasonable person would say is unprofessional.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk about it from the point of view of service providers. Generally, you run an HVAC company, right?
Yep.
So if your staff walks in, dirty clothes, shirts hanging out, chewing gum and using foul language, I'm pretty sure you would not be happy with them. You'd consider that bad behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And that's clearly defined in the employee handbook, like your roles and procedures.
Exactly. So you have an expectation of them to behave in what you would consider to be a professional manner. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of what we talk about when we talk about bad behavior. It's just that kind of people being themselves in a way which makes others uncomfortable. The last thing we want in the service industry is to make our customers uncomfortable, right? We want them to trust us. We want them to believe that we can help them with their problem and do it in a way that's quick and efficient and reasonably cost effective. I mean, that's basically it. So if you're sending off any kind of signals that you're less than professional, all of a sudden your customers are no longer trusting you. I call it the trust gap. Any unprofessional behavior, even if you're in you're working with a partner out in the field who you don't like working with, and you start getting into this back and forth tit for tat little commentary stuff, and you got a customer overhearing that, that's not cool. Nope. You know, it's good. The customer's going to go, what is up with these guys? You know? So that's the kind of bad behavior that's very, very common. You know, the worst stuff is when our employees are openly engaging in harassing kind of behavior, sexual harassment, that kind of stuff, or threatening violence or that kind of stuff, which doesn't happen as much as it used to happen, but it still happens. And we as business owners, boy, do we have to be really, really careful about that stuff, because not only could it lose us business, but it could get us in trouble legally, and you know how costly that can be.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's someone else's actions could cost us our entire business.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous, but it's the case.
I once had a staff member working for me who clearly had issues with alcohol, and would show up at a client's site having had some drinks.
Right.
And at first, I thought it was an aberration. I talked to the person. And then my other members of staff would say, no, it's still going on. I had to let the person go because they were great. Don't get me wrong. They did a great job. And somehow the alcohol, I think they said to me, well, I drink because it makes me loosen up. I'm more comfortable dealing with our clients. And I'm like, okay.
Catch 22 there.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So here was a situation for me where someone was behaving badly. Now, they weren't driving while drunk, or they weren't doing that kind of stuff, but there was always this concern, oh man, what are they going to say? And is it going to get me in trouble? And even though they were one of the best people I ever had working for me, had to let them go.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. And so we do a lot of networking, and at networking events, something they always have is alcohol and food.
Yep.
And and they do it on purpose so that you'll loosen up and talk to people. But you bring up a really good point. Like, you could overindulge, and then all of a sudden you're saying things that you shouldn't be saying about people you shouldn't even be talking about.
Yep.
Or in general. And so,
or you bring up topics, like political stuff or
stuff you stay away from at networking events.
Absolutely. What is it they say? Don't talk about religion, politics, or sex in a social networking session. And I kind of jokingly say, well, what's left to talk about? But in reality, I tell my staff and my director of business development, I say, you go to a networking event, please don't drink. I just say, don't do it. Eat as much food as you want. That's your that's your diet. But please don't drink, because goodness knows what could be said, and it's not worth it. And they agree, it's not a problem.
And not only that, I mean, not to get off on a kick of networking and drinking, but you're there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then for us, we drive away. Like, there's some people that'll Uber, but where we are, it's like you don't walk a block back to the office.
Right.
We're 10 miles away from most of the times. And
you're going to get in the car.
You're going to get back in the car and drive back to the office, or drive home if it's the end of the day. So it creates some issues for sure. Not to run off on that tangent of that, but
well, in general, my advice to business owners is just be mindful. Have that conversation with your new employee, like you said, the employee handbook, and just have the conversation of I call it the expectations conversation. My expectation is you're going to behave this way, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and if you don't, I'm going to call you on it. And I have what I call this 2-strike rule. I don't believe in the what is it they call it, zero tolerance rule.
Yeah,
I'll give you 2 strikes. You screw up once, I'm going to come down on you. I'm going to rein you in. I'm going to maybe discipline you. But you screw up the second time in the same way, I'm sorry, we're done. Yeah. So I'll always give you 2 strikes. But I think zero tolerance is too restrictive. It's too strict. You could turn somebody around if you do it properly. If they do 1 strike and they'll never do it again. But just to terminate someone based on 1 incident, it'd have to be pretty bad. It'd have to be pretty bad.
Not only that, it brings up to me, it's like, would you be able to do that with every single employee? If are you sure they understood it? Are you sure that it was very clear instructions? Are you 100% positive they understood this?
Right.
At that point, you could probably say, they understood it. They knew the rules were like non-negotiable. You're fired. But to me, I like what you said, where they may do it, and then they're like, "That's not the way I interpreted what you said. This is what I interpreted." And then at that point, you're like, "Okay, well, now you know. So next time it's final." So
That's right.
I like that thought process.
Yeah, I just call it the 2-strike rule. Most people get it. And I tell them, I said, I'm giving you, we operate by the 2-strike rule here. I'm going to explain what I believe you need to, how you should behave. If you miss it the first time, you're in trouble. You miss it the second time, you're gone.
So how do you decide on what falls under the 2-strike rule versus something that is kind of, it's annoying, but I'm not going to fire you over it?
Right. Well, first I look at what would I fire somebody for. Sexually harassing a customer. Absolutely. Or groping, or getting into a fist fight with a customer. They're going, sorry, you're gone. Right. Now, of course, we would do our investigation if my brother is a driver. He's a delivery driver. He tells me stories about, and he delivers stuff to people's homes. He said, "Gregg, I can't tell you how many times very nice women have come to the door naked." Right, and I'm like, "You're kidding me." Right. He goes, "It is so embarrassing. It is so uncomfortable. And I have to deliver this thing." And I'm like, "Brother, I feel for you."
Not only that, there's probably a camera somewhere hiding your recording your reaction to see if you're actually going to do something. I'm not going to say that always is the case, but that's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like, oh, Where's the candid camera? I'm being recorded somewhere.
Good. That's a good thing to tell people.
Right.
And of course, if you do act upon that, that's a firing thing. And it's the same. Men come to the door naked too. I mean, it's not just women.
Right.
So I look at the things that I absolutely would fire somebody for, and then I look at everything else. And I think the line we have to be aware of is the legal line.
Yeah.
You certainly there might be a civil suit. You and your employee gets into a fist fight with a customer because the customer's not happy. That might not be a criminal charge. It might be, but it might not. But you and I both know that getting into a fist fight with a customer is just not good for business, no matter how wrong the customer was.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I would say I'd have to look at the legality of the behavior. Boy, and is this a time waster or what? We don't have time to constantly be adjudicating this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
We have a list of what we call non-negotiables, and
there you go.
Stealing is one of them. Gossiping is another, and we define gossiping as if you're complaining about someone to someone else, then that person you're complaining to has no control over the situation. That's gossiping.
That's excellent.
We have no gossip tolerant. We don't tolerate it at all. Because it destroys a culture so fast. And stealing's the same way. And so those are our two things: integrity first and safety. So if you're doing something unsafe, then it's technically a fireable offense. Because honestly, if you fell off of that roof, not only is it like if you got hurt or killed, it terribly affects you and your family and everything else, but it also affects all the other families that work with us because especially if some sort of civil suit comes out of that situation, if we had to close our doors, then all these other families are going to be gone without work too. So
that's a great way to look at it.
It's not just like your injury that we're concerned with. We're concerned about everybody's injuries and everybody's families. So
I think the big challenge for all of us is if we've got that really good employee, they're really, really super good, and they have a few tics and behaviors that are a little outside the norm. A lot of us as business owners go, well, that person's responsible for a lot of revenue coming my way, so maybe I'm going to look the other way. And that's the problem. Mm-hmm. We can't look the other way because our other employees know what's going on. When I had that employee who was drinking all the time, all the other employees knew that they were, and they're kind of looking at me, Gregg, aren't you going to do something about this? So it's like, is there a double standard here? So I always urge my clients, step up, do the right thing, sit the person down. You can talk to them in a very direct way and do it respectfully. You don't have to ream them out and curse at them and all that kind of stuff. You can handle it very respectfully, but make it clear in no uncertain terms that the behavior has to stop. Even if it's that weird, ticky kind of gray area behavior, you still can talk to them about it, make it clear what your expectation is.
Gotcha. So would you say that managing that behavior in itself is, I guess I want to make sure that I'm clear on this. The best thing to do, first of all, is to, if you can foresee it, put it in writing.
Yes.
If not, if it's like a one-off thing where you haven't experienced it before, have that conversation with that person and then put it into writing also.
I think that's a great idea.
And then after that, okay, like this is your last strike, you're fired.
Yep, exactly. I think that's a great idea. And I call it nipping it in the bud. You want to nip that bad behavior, even if it's just a little thing like somebody, I don't know, was spitting outside a customer's home and they just spat on the ground in front of the customer. And somebody noticed. You just want to say, hey, dude, please don't do
that again.
Don't do that again. You realize that's people find that offensive, Right. Just be aware of that. And if it does happen again, then we're gonna have to move to much more serious disciplinary action, up to and including termination. That phrase is a very powerful phrase, and it's a legal phrase. But I found that my clients, and I advise them to use this phrase, up to and including termination, that puts the fear of God in most people. Yeah. Most people. There are some people who are like, screw you, I don't care, fire me, I'll find another job elsewhere. Yeah. And I kind of go, oh, maybe I don't want this person working for me after all.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Sometimes you have that conversation, and that conversation brings to light the value that they place on their position anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your book that you have out.
Sure. The book is called The Respectful Leader: 7 Ways to Influence Without Intimidation. And it's based on my work in respect and respectful leadership that I've been doing for about 20 years. And I was really struggling to help people understand how important respect is in good relationships. And I thought, well, these days, not a lot of people are reading big how-to books. They people don't have time to read big books. And I thought, well, what do people like? They like stories.
Yeah.
So I wrote a story. It's a short story. It's in the genre of the business fable, and it's a short story about a new CEO who is brought in to turn around a company. It's a medical device manufacturing company that it's a fictional one that I created based on all my clients over the past 25 years. And his task is to turn this place around. They're hemorrhaging money. And he discovers there's a lot of disrespect in this company, a lot of fear, a lot of anger and frustration because they're just losing money left, right, and center. Their products are failing. There's a lot of problems. And he first tries to be very command and control. Do as I say. We're going to turn this place around, but only if you do it my way. Well, that blows up in his face, and people find that also very disrespectful. One of his top people leaves and quits because of it. And slowly over time, with the help of his head of maintenance, who's this little old lady named Grace, who has been there and done that, former Air Force mechanic, worked on Air Force helicopters. She's a tough cookie, but she's respectful. And she basically hits him up the side of the head and says, boss, if you want to turn this place around, try treating people with respect. Yeah. And over time, he learns kind of the hard way how to turn his company around. It's a story you can read in, about an hour and 15 minutes. Most people can read. Yeah, it's real quick. And then the second half of the book is sort of an explanation of the principles and the concepts of respect and some of the data that's out there. But mostly, I just tried to create a good story. My father was a storyteller. My father was a journalist, actually. And I was a journalist for many years. I'm a writer. And I just wanted to make a great story about real people that we could recognize every day. And most people tell me they love the story. And after the end of reading the story, they go, oh, I actually learned some stuff reading the story. So that's what it's about.
I've really loved that thought because that there's 2 books that kind of sound not like that, but they're the business fable type. And I really remember connecting with those because, there's the analytical type minded person, and you have your storytelling type person mindset. And so when you have that business, it's like you listen to or you read a book and it's like, oh yeah, that's how I can make that work in my business.
Yes.
I think it was the 5 Dysfunctions
of a Team by Patrick Lencioni.
That was a really good one. And was it Millionaire Next Door?
Yeah.
Was that one that they did it where they told a story one half and then the other half they explained the process behind it?
Yes. There's another one called The Go-Getter, which is The Go-Giver. And that's a great one for salespeople because the Go-Giver, the concept behind that one is, look, just give. Don't always take. Just give to your customers, and they will appreciate it, and they will give to you in the form of their business. But the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team literally was kind of my blueprint for my own book.
Okay.
I took that whole story and how they laid it out and the characters and the reality of it. And then I just created my own, which kind of followed a similar model. But
I like it. But it really, like the little things that you learn in there, you don't realize that, like with the 5 Dysfunctions, like the little things that she did, I was like, oh, I wouldn't do that. And then after the fact, if they explained why, and like, oh, well, that's why that was successful.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, when I actually got the book into the hands of the Table Group, which is the publisher of the 5 Dysfunctions. Actually, the publisher is John Wiley & Sons, which is my publisher. they all said, wow, your book is just like the 5 Dysfunctions of a Teen. And I go, yeah, duh. That was a model that really, really worked. So why wouldn't I just recreate the similar model?
It really does. And even whenever my wife and I read The Millionaire Next Door, we were like, oh, well, it makes more sense whenever it was put into the story fashion.
Right.
Portion of it. And
people love stories. They really do. And that's how who hasn't been read a story as a child? Who doesn't read to their kids stories? This is how we learn, and it's a very powerful way of getting across. And what's interesting for me is I keep getting phone calls from people who say, you don't know me, but I've read your book, and we really want you to come and lead a workshop on your ideas.
Cool.
For us. Yep. Just did one back. I was down in Florida last week. I was in Orlando at an offsite leadership meeting where they had me do a half-day workshop for them based on my book.
Really cool. That is really cool. I will definitely. I have it on my list right now to go pick it up. Now, Great. Is it just in print or is
it's also audio book,
awesome.
and also I can send you a PDF if you'd like.
Cool. That would be awesome.
Yep. For Kindle, I'll send you one. Yep.
Sweet. I appreciate it. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for that to happen?
Easiest way to reach me is through my website. It's www.greggwardgroup.com. And Gregg is spelled with 2 G's at the end, Gregg, Ward, W-A-R-D, group.com. You can also go to respectfulleadership.org. I'm the founder and executive director of the Center for Respectful Leadership, and you can also go to that website as well.
Cool. I will add those to the show notes so everybody has those links. Gregg, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your little bit of history about the NYPD also.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to your book too. And maybe I can have you out in Savannah.
That'd be great. I was there a couple of years ago. Love Savannah. Great town.
It's a memorable town. But
Yep. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
All right. You take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.